It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Ready to bring your vision to life? At Small Rig, every idea, design, and product is inspired by you, the creator. With our industry-first under co-design mode and the Dream Rig free customization project, we unite with global creators to turn big dreams into reality. Whether it's a cage rig or mount, Small Rig's versatile gear is built to elevate your craft. Small Rig, where your creativity meets our innovation. Go to smallrig.com.
At Rolls Rolo, we don't just sell wallpaper, we create cohesive, cozy spaces. Our deep understanding of design means every pattern, color, and texture is carefully chosen to complement your home. Plus, we use advanced technology and water-based inks for vibrant, eco-friendly prints, ensuring a healthier environment. Visit rollsrolla.com to transform your space today. That's ROLLSROLLA.com today. At 25 Home, our ultimate goal is to provide you with a transformative experience, making each day feel like it has an extra hour. We believe your home is more than just a space, it's a sanctuary where comfort, relaxation, and happiness thrive. Discover the difference at 25 Home today. Shop now at 25home.com.
Pete Sousa Show. We are back up in the hotel after Texas Tech had a convincing victory against Colorado. Coming up on today's show, it's a best of. So I'm doing this. This is like around 11 o'clock post game. I'm catching a really early flight tomorrow. So I wanted to give you some content for Thursday's show. If you like true crime, we've got Claire Sanema talking about her history in 48 hours, her future with the Rogue Media Network and what she's doing true crime-wise. We're also going to talk to Paul Biancardi from ESPN today and Madison Hawk. These are interviews you heard this week, but we're doing a best of because they're interviews you got to do it again or you got to hear again. And also, I'm not going to be able to go live. But I will give you some like fresh content thinking about today or tonight's game. So Texas Tech, like I said, they just dismantled Colorado. Colorado's not very good at all. Texas Tech is very good. They beat Kansas on the road on Saturday in a real close game at Allen Fieldhouse, which I don't care how Kansas is doing. It's really hard to do that. And then, like I mentioned, they just blew Colorado out of the water tonight. Here is the scariest part about Texas Tech. Right now, I'm totally a victim of the moment. I feel like this is a team that should go to the Final Four. They're ranked 9th in the country right now, so it's not like there's no statistical information or data behind it. But I've got a couple names behind this as well. JT Toppin, Chance McMillan, Elijah Hawkins. These guys are all coming together. They're an amazing team. They've got Christian Anderson coming off the bench, a freshman from Atlanta, who you will definitely be hearing about as we get deeper into March in the NCAA tournament. And you're also going to hear about Kerwin Walton. You heard about him 3 years ago when he played for North Carolina and then went to the national championship. He was a member of that team and saw meaningful minutes. This is a very good basketball team, and they've got one of the best coaches in the country. Graham McCaslin is a one of one. Everywhere he's been, he's won. And maybe at Texas Tech, you could say he's one of two. He and Bob Knight are the only coaches in the history of Texas Tech to win 20 games in each of their first 2 seasons. I called the game with Scott Williams. Scott is my man. He was amazed at just how good Texas Tech was. It's the 3rd time I've had him this season. I think it was his 2nd. But, yeah, man, I'm telling you right now, Texas Tech means business. The only thing that could trouble them are injuries. And you had a point in time where Chance McMillan and Elijah Hawkins missed time. Darion Williams, I didn't even mention him yet. That guy's one of the best players, if not the best player on the team. Darion Williams has found a way to adjust and play a certain type of basketball where he's absorbed the rest of his teammates and their abilities, I should say, and found a way to really make this team connect, because he was the guy early in the season that everyone looked at as the focal point. But as things started to come into picture, or the picture became it started to come into focus for this team, it was very clear that JT Toppin was going to be a significant contributor. And so was Elijah Hawkins, and so was Chance McMillan. And Darion Williams has found a way to bring them all together. So an amazing win for them tonight. Maybe not an amazing win, but they took care of business. But they clinched a bye to the second round, or excuse me, to the third round. So they won't have to play on Tuesday of the Big 12 tournament, and they won't have to play on Wednesday of the Big 12 tournament. So Texas Tech will start their play on Thursday. As far as the Big 12 is concerned, 8 teams right now. Joe Lunardi has getting in. West Virginia winning last night on the road in Utah. A lot to be excited about if you're a Big 12 fan, and a lot to be excited about if you're a fan of Texas Tech or a fan of Baylor. It's March, and anything can happen. And the only downside to this really is, me personally, this has been my first year off of morning television, so I've been able to watch games like late into the night, and I'm going to really miss like the double headers, the triple headers that I've been able to watch on ESPN or CBS Sports Network that have been Big 12 basketball. Just another amazing season. I got one more game left, West Virginia and UCF on Saturday, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to you guys hearing these interviews coming up. There's one more story I guess I'll get into. I saw that Jason Kidd was quick to say tonight, and I really haven't even read the article. And honestly, I just read the headline. But it said that Kidd doesn't link Kyrie's injury to, the extended minutes he's been playing. What else is he going to say? The Mavs are a complete train wreck. And, it was interesting to see Kevin O'Connor, a basketball writer for The Ringer, obviously a very reputable source of basketball, not only content, but basketball information. And when I say information, I mean like those guys are sourced up. They talk to people in the NBA and around the league. And Kevin O'Connor was like, look, the Mavs should fire Nico Harrison right now. And, I don't know. Will they? Huh. You never want to see a guy lose his job. I'm not one of those people. Like, Nico Harrison probably has kids. They probably go to school in the DFW area. Like, the fact that he doesn't say much and he's not very he's just not very relatable at this moment in time. I think it's easy for a lot of people to climb all over him and be like, fire him. You got to give this look, I would probably fire him, but I don't know. Well, I'm not running the Dallas Mavericks. But I am running back to Waco. And in doing so, I got to go to a plane, which is why you're about to watch these 3 interviews. The best of Pete Sousa, Claire Santama, Paul Biancardi, and Madison Hawk, the best of this week. We've got some big things coming at you on Friday. Thanks so much for watching. I have loved the relationship I built with folks that watch this. And yeah, if you're a Texas Tech fan, guns up. Big win tonight. All right, Pete Sousa Show coming up. Presented by the way, who can forget Slovakics? D1, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, Crawford Austin Properties, and of course, Scotty Swindler back in studio. All right, we'll check you guys out Friday. But first, check out these interviews. Welcome back to the Pete Sousa Show, presented by Slovakics. By the way, Claire, I get to do my best like Jay Leno impression.
I love it. I love it, Pete.
Killer story. How's it going?
Going really well. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So Killer Story is the book. It's out. It's already killing. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was a lame joke, but it's the truth. All right.
Hey, I'll take it.
Talk to me a little bit about, I spoke earlier about your work with 48 Hours. I actually watched Temptation in Texas over the weekend, which I have some questions about. We can do that at the end. But Killer Story, the truth behind true crime television. Of course, and we talked about the podcast you have with the Rogue Media Network as well. Last Days on Earth and Justice Pending. But talk a little bit about Killer Story and the inspiration behind this book.
I wanted to take people where no audience has ever gone before. And people watch true crime television, they listen to the podcast, but not many people have worked on these shows. And so I wanted to bring people behind the scenes and give them all the producing secrets of what we do to get these stories on television.
I was thinking a little bit about that because watching that Temptation in Texas, it was Peter Van Zandt.
Yep.
And that was back in 2011? I guess the murder was in 2011. Yeah. So when did you film that story? Like when was all of that being done?
2014. Yeah, we were filming that.
So now when you guys do the prison interviews, right?
Right.
Like, or in the jail at the time, because it was before any sentencing came down. Are you there?
So most of the time I am. For the Michelle Williams one, I was not working for 48 Hours yet. So I wasn't there. But for all the other cases, I would be there. I would either be in the little tiny room, which is hard to believe, or they would make like a video village where we would be able to watch monitors in a room around the corner. So yeah, it was always an adventure getting into jail or prison. It's quite the security process.
Well, man, what is that like for you guys when you set up an interview, you as a producer with someone who is, going to be on trial or is on trial for the murder of someone, maybe usually it's someone that they're very close to. And that they're going to they got a story. What's the approach when you guys head into these situations and those types of interviews?
So we know that we have a limited amount of time because we're there, by the good grace of the law enforcement that are allowing us to do this interview. So we have to try to get to the good stuff pretty quickly. We want to make sure we ask the big questions. Did you do it? And, what really happened if they're saying that they didn't commit the crime, how did you get wrapped up in this, and allow them to tell their side of the story. Most of the people behind bars, if you've ever noticed, they say they didn't do it, right? They're there wrongfully accused, wrongfully convicted. And while that's true for some people, usually with our 48 Hours cases, we've done our due diligence, and there's been a mountain of evidence proving that this person committed the crime. So we're trying to get them to come clean. We're trying to get them to admit to what they did and, give the answer that everybody wants to know, which is why.
What are some of the other threads? You mentioned the motives, by the way. That's usually, as a viewer, my number one thing.
Yeah.
Like, why did this happen? Why did they do it? But when you talk about this book, what's one thing that people will be surprised about to learn this process, what it's like?
I think people would be surprised to learn how many hoops that you have to jump through as a producer. It is not an easy job to try to get an exclusive story on primetime network television. And the battle royale between 48 Hours and Dateline in 2020 is probably one of the more interesting threads in the book, because there's some war games going on, Pete. There's some sabotage, there's story stealing, there's all sorts of things happening.
What is one of the wildest situations you've been involved in when you felt like, that you can share? When you thought you had a story locked in, or you lost it, or vice versa? You got, maybe somebody has a relationship with you, or someone like, Peter Van Zandt, and they come to them and they say, okay, or, Maureen Maher, we want to give them the story.
Yeah.
How, can you give me some insight on that?
Sure. So I think the craziest thing that happened to me one time was covering a case in Collin County, Plano, Texas, and thinking, that I had the story, thinking that the characters were going to work with me exclusively. And over the course of a weekend, having what I believe to be major sabotage from Dateline, a producer calling and impersonating me, and really having an aggressive conversation with this character that I thought was going to go on camera exclusively with me, and turning the character against me. And so I show up on Monday morning to court. I have no idea what's happened, and she'll no longer talk to me, and it's this whole crazy discovery of me trying to figure out what happened. And her finally saying, well, I'm really sorry, but the person who called me, they said they were Claire and they worked for 48 Hours. And they said if I didn't do the interview today, that they were walking away from the story. And, I just couldn't do that. But they don't actually sound like you do now, and it was like this light bulb moment. And so, from then on, I told characters, if you ever get a call from someone, and it's not this cell phone number, this is the only number I'll ever call you from. But if you ever get a call from someone saying it's me, don't believe them. Like it sounds paranoid, but it happens.
If I'm watching the 48 Hours, right, that you produced, and I'm not hearing or when you're talking about somebody, and I'm not hearing or seeing from them, I can only presume that they're either in prison or in jail, right? Because usually early on in the episode, I'll hear from most of the characters, right? But the exception was, I was watching that. So you didn't work on that Temptation in Texas? I thought you were a field producer for that.
No, so there was 2 episodes. So the very first episode, yeah. So the very first episode, I was the special CBS News consultant. And so I was actually on camera talking about the case as a local journalist who broke it, right? Okay. So who dug up all these sources and did this investigative reporting. So that was episode number 1. And
all right, so let's go back. Hold on. Let's go back now, because this is awesome, because you broke this story, right?
I did, yeah.
So where were you working at the time?
So I was working for Culture Map Dallas, which is a great daily news website. And I was one of the founding editors of that Dallas site. So it started in Houston, and it had come to Dallas. And one of the things that I did is I carved out space for investigative reporting. And so I had published a 3-part investigative series on Michelle Williams called Did Michelle Williams Get Away with Murder? And it was about this twisted tale of the death of her husband, Greg Williams, and, all the lies that she told along the way, because she claimed there'd been an intruder in her house. She claimed that he committed suicide. Then she claimed that, there went back to the intruder story and said, but, I'm covering up for the intruder because they're going to come get me. I mean, it was just one thing after another, Pete.
Yeah. And so that was honestly unbelievable. And then you guys interview her, and she has a plea bargain going, and she completely blows up the plea bargain because it's a guilty plea, right?
Correct.
Guilty to, what was it? Tampering with evidence, and then something else.
Yeah, tampering with evidence and deadly conduct.
Yes,
is so rare felony. Yeah.
So it's like
deal.
2 years or 20 years, but she's probably gonna leave prison alive.
Yes.
On camera with you guys, she tells another lie that she didn't do it. So the judge says, screw this.
Yep.
You're going to trial.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you're talking to somebody like that, Michelle Williams, like if her lips were moving, she was lying. That's the
Yes.
impression I got. How did you uncover that story? How did you figure that out when you were working at this? What was it? Culture
Map.
Yeah. Well, so how did you uncover this?
Yeah, so I came across the story. It was reported, locally, just that the plea deal had been reached. That this woman was pleading guilty in the death of her husband, and I just thought, who gets a plea deal for murder in Texas? Like, what is going on here? This is not normal, and I just got really curious about who this woman was, and so I started, did a deep dive on her background and found out that she had been married twice before and just had a trail of destruction in her wake. And so I just reported it all. I talked about, the cons that she had run through the years. She had faked pregnancies. She'd lied about her children's paternity. She had killed a man's dog. She had poisoned a fish tank. She had done a lot of really morally troubling things.
And she may have killed her brother-in-law too.
Yes. So that was really stunning to discover that less than a year before her husband died of a single gunshot wound to the head with his own gun, her brother-in-law suffered the same fate. And that case was immediately ruled a suicide. And she, Michelle Williams, actually had, put everything in place to have her brother-in-law cremated.
Yeah, like 24 hours after almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she stepped in places the next of kin and was really working everything at hyper speed, and people weren't suspicious of her yet. But then when her husband died of the same exact injury less than a year later, and she had him cremated as well, people started asking questions. And I was the first journalist to talk about those two cases, potentially being connected.
So then, and this gets to Killer Story and the behind the scenes of how this stuff works. So then does CBS reach out to you?
Yes. So actually all three networks reached out to me after the Michelle Williams story. NBC's Dateline, ABC's 2020, and CBS's 48 Hours. And they were all interested in the twisted tale of Michelle Williams. So I got a baptism by fire with the national television shows. And I ended up feeling like CBS and 48 Hours were the straightest shooters, and they offered to come meet me in Dallas to take me out to dinner at Mi Cocina.
Oh, right. Miko.
Really charmed me.
Yeah.
So, I ended up working with them, and we, we've been on a quite the journey ever since.
Yeah. And by the way, the podcast, Last Days on Earth, which I'm going to 100% listen to now because it's based around this Michelle Williams and Greg Williams story.
So the latest season of Final Days on Earth has Michelle Williams' story front and center. So we go through all the ins and outs of her life, of the various crimes she's been accused of and suspected of, and it's a really wild ride.
What are some of the other things, you've had a lot of opportunities to talk about this book and tell people why it's interesting. What are some of the other reasons people should read this book?
I think that if you enjoy watching true crime television, you will learn things from this book that you can't learn anywhere else. And I don't think you'll ever watch your favorite true crime show the same way again.
Are you going to spoil it for us, or are you going to make it better? I would imagine you're only going to make my.
I'm going to make it better, Pete. I'm going to make it better because you're going to know whenever you see, the killer in prison, you're going to be like, oh, they're wearing a dress shirt instead of their normal prison clothes. And I bet that shirt belongs to a member of the camera crew because that's how we roll. Yeah, that's usually how it will work. Yeah.
Wow. So you'll give them an opportunity. Hey, do you want to put this on or?
Exactly. Yeah. So we try to work it through the prison, but a lot of times they would say like it's too much of a security risk. So once they're already in the room, already sitting there under monitor with their cuffs on, everything, we would say, be really nice if they weren't in orange or yellow or, whatever stripes. the prison garb is. And, this guy over here, he's size XL, looks about the same. Could we do
Yeah.
a swap, And yeah, sometimes the camera guys would bring like their dry cleaning so that we would have an extra shirt. It was a go-to move. Yeah.
So if I give you, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but if I give you this is the true crime personality draft. All right. And so you get to pick an anchor to work with. Okay. And you can, anybody, Josh Mankiewicz, Keith Morrison, Maureen Maher, some of Andrea Canning, and then of course the Peter Van Zants. Who do you want to work with? Who are you going to take?
Oh man, that's tough. My number one pick.
Yeah, who's your number one?
So I got to go with Mo. I got to go with Maureen Maher. She was amazing to work with, and we did a lot of fun stories together. She was actually the only person fun. I mean, fun for us. It's dark humor, but we would run and gun. She was, no frills. We'd hop in the rental car together and chase down the story and get whatever we needed. And it was always we always had a lot of really good conversations on the road, because sometimes we'd be driving 2, 3, 4 hours to get to a prison or something, and so she was a great road warrior.
I know you have this in the book, but for people that don't know, how long does it take for these stories to come to fruition? Like, how long are you working on a story? Because when I'm sitting at home refreshing my 48 hours waiting for a new episode, because I've watched every single one under the sun, like, how long do they take to come together before they make it on air?
So it usually would take years, because we would start following the story like when the case broke, when there was a murder, and then there's been an arrest and then a trial, and that stuff takes a really long time to go through the court system. So typically, 2 to 3 years we would work on a case before it would air. But there were crashes, whenever major events would happen, like the Dallas police shooting happened on a Thursday night, and we went to air in our regular time slot on Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
With that, like that story, the latest on that story.
Yes. Yeah. So it was, it was a huge network-wide effort. So everybody got involved, and we had correspondents, from the CBS This Morning working with us, and we had just a full team, like probably 4 times the amount of people that would normally be working on a 48 hours worked on that crash. And, that was a breaking news special. So we did that. And we also talked about other high profile police shootings around the country that had happened. That was the summer of 2016. It was absolutely just a really fraught time for, law enforcement shootings. And it was something else. So that was a really interesting experience to be on that kind of schedule, because like I said, we usually had years to work, and this time we had 2 days. So yeah. Do
you at all, when you're doing your stories, and I'll let you go after this, but when you're doing these stories, do you become a little jaded because a lot of the characters you're working with are full of BS? And it's like one of those things, like when you meet a police officer, sometimes you wonder why they can be rough around the edges. Well, it's because everybody they're talking to is lying.
Yeah.
Do you notice that with yourself a little bit, like kind of becoming a little hardened by a lot of these stories?
I definitely became more skeptical. I'm one of those people that I like to trust what people are telling me. I want to believe you, and so it was an interesting experience to recognize that, there are people in the world that they will lie to your face and not even bat an eye about it. So that definitely started to affect me. I think it's part of the reason why I left true crime television, because I felt like being on that sort of pace where I was covering all these stories and talking to all these killers was starting to weigh on me emotionally. And it was something that I wanted to, I didn't want to become hardened. I didn't want to become jaded. I wanted to stay true to myself. And so it was a point where I felt like, to do that, I was going to have to step away from that job.
Yeah, well, it's nice to know there's humanity on both sides, because it's got to be tough. I would imagine it's got to be really tough. How many years did you do that for? And how many episodes?
So for 8 years, I did it. I went back and looked at all my episodes, and I think it was around like 28 episodes that I was credited on. And, you know, what I talk about in the book is we worked on so many other stories that never made air. So, you know, even if it doesn't come up on 48 hours, it doesn't mean that I wasn't working on it and it wasn't affecting me. And, you know, I probably worked on, you know, 50, 60 cases in that amount of time just to get the ones that would actually make air.
I keep saying last one, but here's the last one.
Yeah.
I promise. Like I told you I would keep you all day. How many relationships did you forge with like law enforcement? Like, did you almost find yourself really leaning on them and developing really good sources,
Yeah.
you know, all over the country, all over Texas, right? Because in order to do these stories the right way, you've got to have legitimate sources who are telling you the truth.
Yes, yeah. A lot of cops and a lot of attorneys ended up being good friends of mine because that's how you get the stories. That's how you get the information. And yeah, we started to develop trust and develop, you know, a way of communicating. And because I wasn't like in the daily grind of, you know, daily news, I didn't have these deadlines. I didn't have to have a story on the 5 o'clock news. You know? So they could trust me with information and know that I wasn't going to report it the second that it left their lips, right? I was able to hold things close to the vest, and I could tell them, you know, that I could let them know like this wasn't going to air until, you know, X date. And so they were able to say things that by that time it was okay to be public. So, you know, it was interesting kind of doing that tightrope walk with, you know, you have to build up your relationship with these sources and you have to prove yourself trustworthy. And to do that, you know, they're willing to give you information, like you have to be willing to reciprocate. So it was always interesting. Like I was trying to let them know like what it was really like to be a producer and the things that I was up against in my job, you know, so that hopefully they would help reveal things that were going on in the case. And yeah, you know, I ended up to this day, you know, I have lots of cops all over the country and attorneys all over the country that I regularly, you know, text or email with, and they're all reading the book. So it's pretty interesting.
Here is the book, Killer Story. She is Claire Sanema. Amazing work, Claire. Really, thank you so much for bringing some of this stuff to life. I haven't read the book yet. I cannot wait to read it. And for all you do for Rogue Media too. You know, it's there's a lot going on. So the podcasts right now are Last Days on Earth, right? And
Final Days on Earth.
Final Days on Earth. And then what's the one that's out right now?
Justice Pending. So that's the spinoff that I've done with my true crime bestie Susan, who also helped me on Killer Story with great writing and editing. And we talk about all the cases that keep us up at night and ones that we're considering for future seasons of Final Days on Earth. So it's a weekly true crime chat show, one case per episode. And yeah, we're just kind of workshopping these cases in real time.
Amazing work, Claire. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Pete.
You got it. Claire Sanema, the book is Killer Story. The Pete Sousa Show is presented by Slovacics. We'll be back.
We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite. Dive into adventure with Scuba.com, your ultimate destination for top-tier scuba and snorkeling gear. With over 20 years of experience, our expert staff, who've dived everywhere from the Galapagos to the Maldives, provides personalized advice to help you find the perfect gear for any underwater journey. Shop leading brands like GoPro, Aqualung, and Scuba Pro. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, trust Scuba.com for the best in diving equipment and expert guidance. Explore now at Scuba.com. That's SCUBA.com. Scuba.com. At Terrapin Ridge Farms, they believe in the joy of effortless entertaining. Inspired by CEO Mary O'Donnell's mom and her legendary holiday parties, they've crafted a line of gourmet foods that turn any meal into a celebration. From savory jams to mustards, aiolis, and more, their products are made with love, bringing unforgettable flavors to your table. Whether it's a casual get-together or a special occasion, they make it easy to impress. Terrapin Ridge Farms, where great food and great memories come together. Visit them at terrapinridge.com. Terrapin Ridge. Want to turn your passion into profit? With Blogify, creating a blog has never been easier. Build, customize, and grow your site with powerful tools designed for beginners and pros alike. Start sharing your story today and watch your audience grow with Blogify. Visit blogify.ai today for a free 3-day trial. That's Blogify, Blogify.ai today.
And now, back to our show.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. What do you think Rick Majerus would say about that situation?
Get it fixed. And then let's go out for dinner.
Dude, I have so many old school stuff. I was always, by the way, we're talking with Paul Biancardi, director of scouting for ESPN, also college basketball analyst, former D1 coach. I was always so fascinated by Majerus. I never got a chance to meet him. I was around him a little bit when I did some stuff with USA Basketball, but one of the most colorful figures in the history of basketball. What is one thing or a story about him that you carry? I know there's a ton, but anything that sticks out when you remember Coach Majerus?
Yeah, I got so many stories, Pete, and you only have so many minutes on this segment. But I want to tell you something that most people don't know. When my dad died, Coach somehow, some way reached out to me. And if you've ever been through the loss of a loved one or a parent, everyone goes into a shell in a different way. And even my closest friends and family, I didn't want to anyone. And somehow he got through to me. And I picked up the phone, didn't know it was him at the time. And he left some really profound words. He said, look, you can never take away the love that he had for you and you had for him. Of course, he lost his dad before that. So for him to track me down, for him to offer those words, that's the side of Rick Majerus that just most people don't see, that he went out of his way to track me down.
Yeah.
I'll always remember that, and I'll always remember his words. And I've passed those words on to other people who have lost their parents. And it's been very helpful.
That's amazing. And that's kind of, you're going to get either humor or impact when you talk about Coach Majerus to guys like you who had a front row seat. Let's talk about the impact in college basketball and some of these sensational freshmen. It's a brand new day, and we could talk about that ad nauseum, but I want to get perspective from you on this year's freshmen and how they have impacted college basketball. Have these guys come through and delivered?
In a big-time fashion. This is the class that I've been waiting for. Cooper Flagg reclassified. He's supposed to still be in high school. So try to process that. Can you imagine him in high school still?
No.
His ability to turn over a team is amazing in terms of changing the way it was or impacting it to new levels. But the class as a whole was the class that I was waiting for, because when you look at the top 5 guys, they've all impacted college basketball. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe. Those guys have been sensational. They've some nights they've carried their team, or they've been a big part of it. But the class as a whole, I think, has really elevated college basketball. It's a transfer game now. It's an older game, but you can't deny the fact that the freshmen can help you win games and possibly championships because of their readiness, because of their talent. And you have to get the right talent, Pete. It's so important. There are a lot of 5-star guys on the board. Some of them have red flags. A lot of 4-star talents on the board. They have red flags. We only rank 100 players out of 500,000 high school basketball players. We rank 100 seniors.
Wow.
So those kids are pretty talented. and they have some tremendous traits, meaning, characteristics that they bring, the intangibles. And I think that this freshman class has knocked it out of the park. And next year's class, freshman class, could be as good or better for college basketball. So college basketball right now is in a very rich place.
All right, before we get to next year's class, let's go backwards real quick. I want to get your take on VJ Edgecombe. What has he done that has surprised you this year? Because nobody knows these recruits like you. But on this big stage, playing in the Big 12, what have you seen from him that you've really taken note of and you thought, wow, I didn't even think it would be that good?
Well, first of all, VJ Edgecombe is a tremendous worker. He has those intangibles that people don't see, those everyday work habits. He always had a good jump shot. I think his ability to adjust to the physicality of the game, top athlete coming into college, like one of the best athletes in all of college basketball. Certainly, in my opinion, was the best freshman athlete coming in along with Ace Bailey. But just his ability to make shots at a pretty good level in college. Usually they dip when they go from senior year in high school to freshman year in college. I think he's hovering around 36%. And his free throw is over 75%. So for me, that shows me that he's worked on it all summer long. And the one thing that people don't realize about VJ Edgecombe, he's a really good passer. His assist numbers are pretty good for a guy who comes in not as a point guard, really as an off guard, but he can see the game. He can play out of pick and roll, athleticism off the charts, and he gives Baylor some excellent on-ball and off-ball defense.
We talk about next year's class. Who is an impact guy that people are not talking about right now that you expect to make a huge splash on the stage of college basketball next year?
Well, the three guys at the top that everyone's talking about, first of all, A.J. DeBonce is going to BYU. That's a game changer. They've never had a player like this in history. College basketball hasn't had a freshman like this in a long time. As great as Cooper Flagg is, A.J. DeBonce is as good. And he has as much upside, if not more, than Cooper Flagg. A.J. DeBonce reminds me of Tracy McGrady and LeBron James as an athlete in high school, Pete. And I saw both of those guys when I was coaching. So I know exactly what LeBron and T-Mac did as high school players. And DeBonce has that athleticism and has a big-time game. Darren Peterson is coming into Kansas. I think he's going to wow college basketball next year. I really do. He's phenomenal. And then Duke, again, gets the top recruit. They have Cameron Boozer, the son of Carlos Boozer. And when you think of Cameron Boozer, I think of a combination of Kevin Love and Tim Duncan.
Wow.
Great outlet. Yeah, great outlet passer. Great outlet passer. Like Kevin Love, Bill Walton, Wes Unseld type of outlet. When you see him throw an outlet, text me next year. Because he fires the ball off the rebound down the floor better than anyone I've seen since Kevin Love. And he has all the fundamentals at 6'9", like Tim Duncan. I call Cameron Boozer the little fundamental because he's only 6'9".
Well,
but
I mean,
those three guys.
That's super impressive, Paul, because you don't see, and I don't want to be like the get off my lawn basketball fan, but you don't see the guys who are so well furnished, for whatever reason, coming into college basketball at 18 years old. It's rare that you talk about guys this young, right? A lot of times you're talking about potential, not polish.
No question. And those three guys have both. They both have potential and they both have productivity, and they're ready-made. Like they could play right now or this year they could have played in college basketball, and they would produce as well as Harper, Bailey, Trey Johnson, Cooper Flagg. These kids are NBA lottery picks. DeBonce is the favorite for number 1 in 2026, and Darren Peterson's right behind him, and Boozer's a top 10 pick. So college basketball next season is enormously healthy, and Arkansas has some talent coming in. They have Darius Acuff. He's the best scoring point guard in the class, and Arkansas, obviously, we watched them enough this year to know that they need a little bit of offense, and Darius Acuff Jr. will provide the offense. So college basketball, the NBA draft, in a very healthy space.
All right, Cooper Flagg, you've been on this guy since he was a sophomore in high school. What makes him so special? What does he do most,
Well, I'll give you a little background. His AAU coach, Andy Bedard, played for us at Boston College.
Oh, okay.
So going back, I get a phone call after his freshman year, and he says, "Hey, Coach, I got a kid who's really good from Maine." And I said, "Wait, stop. Maine? There's players in Maine?" And he says, "No, he's different, Coach. He's really different. He's going to leave Maine, going to go to a big high school, and you need to know about him." I said, "Okay, send me a film." So I saw the film. You know, obviously I thought he was very intriguing back then. He was 6'7", did a little bit of everything well, was all over the place. Fast forward, he goes to Montverde Academy. I watched him in the summertime play with Andy Bedard. And once I started watching him the first and second time, I knew he was special. Got him on the phone, talked to him, his parents, his grandparents. And the thing about Cooper Flagg that the nation needs to know, he's a purist. Pete, he's a purist. He plays for the true love of the game. He only plays to win, and he competes his you-know-what off all the time. Doesn't care about social media, doesn't care about branding, doesn't care about attention. He's an unselfish star who's a great teammate. I mean, if you could make a prospect for the college game and the NBA, it would be Cooper Flagg. He's a tremendous role model for today's player because he has an everyday approach. And as I mentioned, he only plays to win. It doesn't matter how many points he gets. Doesn't matter if he gets the post-game interview. This guy is everything that we would all want. And he's going to be the next star in the NBA. He'll be one of the faces in the NBA in the next 2 to 4 years.
So he's that good. Because it's one thing, to actually, like we talked about earlier, like the delivery of the goods in the NBA is something that's really special when they can transcend. And Cooper Flagg's a guy, you're playing your flag on him.
That's a nice way to say it. I talked to 2 NBA owners, not scouts, not GMs, 2 owners recently, and questions about the top of the draft. The thing about Cooper is a lot of people say he's got generational talent, and I would say he does close to have generational talent, but he has a generational approach. When you think of all the greatest that we've seen over our lifetime, going back to the Larry Birds, the Magic Johnsons, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Isaiah Thomases, and Tim Duncans of the world. This kid has that type of approach. He has those intangibles. He has 5-star plus intangibles. His talent is super on both ends of the floor. Needs to be a better 3-point shooter, of course. Needs to improve his, lower body strength when you're going to play in the NBA. There's a lot of improvement left still for Cooper Flagg. As competitive, as coachable as we will ever see in our lifetime. So it's going to happen for that young man. And I'm excited when he gets to the NBA because he's going to have a dramatic effect on the league in the future.
You're having a dramatic effect on me. You're getting me pumped. How about I want to ask you a couple more things, but you touched on something I find pretty interesting. You said Cooper Flagg doesn't get on social media. How have you seen that whole new element to our world, right? Everybody, whether you're working at TD Bank or whether you're trying to play at TD Bank Garden, like how do you see that playing a role in the development of these young men? Does it slow them down sometimes? Does it maybe pick up the process because you get more eyes on them? What's been your takeaway?
Well, first of all, he's on social media, but he doesn't let it distract him. Okay, so he's on it, but he's not always on it, and it's not important to him. He'll take periods of time away from it. So I just want to make sure people understand he is on it, but he's very careful with it. I've seen social media become a major distraction for today's player. They care more about the likes, the hits, who they follow, and it's created what I call, Pete, the one game you can't win, the comparison game. And all of today's kids and last few years and since social media has arrived, it's creating a anxiety effect of comparing themselves against everyone else. And that's unhealthy because anytime you compare yourself to anyone or anything, to me, it's a recipe for unhappiness for a lot of reasons that we know. There's no growth when you compare. So a lot of the kids at 16, 17, now 15, and even 14 are on social media. And I think it takes away from their actual time alone in the gym, in the weight room, watching film. It's used as a entertainment factor, which we all enjoy, but I don't think young kids understand how to control it and how to keep it in moderation. And I see it affecting them more than helping them. There's a lot of hype and a lot of fluff. And so I have to kind of cipher between what's real and what's not real. And social media makes it difficult.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. You know, you got the keen eye of a former D1 big-time basketball coach, several big-time schools. You mentioned BC. We talked about St. Louis, Boston University. What about you and your experience there lends itself to like navigating these waters, not only figuring out what's real and what's fluff, but actually dissecting these guys and figuring out who can play?
Yeah, the coaching background really has helped me tremendously to have the right eye, the right perspective, to understand how a player goes from freshman in high school to a senior in high school, from a freshman in college to a senior in college. So that background of Ohio State, Boston College, Wright State head coach, it's really prepared me for this job, which when I took the job, I was coaching with Rick Majerus, actually having dinner with him when I got offered the job. And so I didn't know what it was going to entail entirely. I didn't know it was going to become this big of a deal. You're going to rank players. You're going to evaluate players. You've done it your whole life. Okay, great. Let's do it. You're going to be on TV for high school games. We're starting to promote high school games on ESPN. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You'll be part of the McDonald's game and you'll do college basketball. I didn't think it'd be that hard, but with social media and the way basketball has become a huge business, it's become a big deal. But the background of coaching really lends itself to a good perspective. So I don't overreact to a bad performance, and I don't get overly excited when I see somebody play really well. I try to get multiple evaluations, and I do a pretty good job of getting intel on a character, because I really think, Pete, the character of a player can protect and enhance his talent as he moves up as a teenager into college.
Is that something now that's become more difficult with the portal era, right? Because I want to ask you about how NIL and the portal have changed the landscape, but I'm starting to get a feeling that you don't get to know these guys. Like you mentioned, Cooper Flagg, around him since he was a sophomore in high school. Yeah, okay, I get that with your relationship with him and also with some of these bigger prospects, but you see guys transferring to schools, and it seems like it's such a short-term courting that a lot of these coaches and programs maybe aren't quite sure who they're getting. Is there credence to that?
No, that's why most programs, especially at the high level, the Power Four, if you will, are going to what they call a GM or a chief of staff or whatever you want to call them. They're coming up with these jobs, roster management coaches, because the turnover is so quick that the assistant coaches can't even keep track of, who is going to be playing for them next, like who's going to be available and how good is that player. And you have to make quick decisions. So you need a staff. It's going to be like the NBA, Pete, where you're going to have a scouting staff and then a coaching staff. That's where it's going to. That's where it really is right now. We saw North Carolina just hire, a GM, because you need somebody who's going to evaluate the prospects, both high school and transfers, all season long, all year long. Then you have to figure out where you're going to get your money and how much you're going to get. And there's, numbers coming down after the antitrust settlement in April. We have revenue money. Will the collective still be a part of it? We don't know. But you have to match the money to the productivity. Because if you get that wrong, just like in the NBA, you're going to have a bad team. So when you're offering kids money, you better make sure that you have evaluated their game and their background, and then offer what you think is the appropriate amount, because you don't want to overspend, and obviously you want to be in the ballpark. The last couple of years, it's been true, capitalism. You don't know what kids really have gotten. Kids have inflated their number. Agents have gotten involved heavily into the recruiting game. And it should settle out as time goes on. I think it's going to go to contracts, Pete, where there'll be independent contractors, and the contracts will be public. There'll be buyouts where schools will get money if a kid decides to transfer. Right now, if a kid transfers, there's no buyout. Like, he gets his money, and he doesn't have to pay the school he just played for anything. So it's going to go to an NBA-type model, I think, when it comes to the scouting staff and also the contracts.
All right, give us a peek ahead to the 2025 draft. What are you looking at, and what is your, the scouting you do for so long, and now it's got to be cool for you to see a lot of these guys, their maturation on the floor and their chances of becoming pro. Give us a little peek into that draft.
Yeah, this draft's going to be one of the best that we've had in a long time. And you're right. When I see these kids in high school and then I see their growing pains as freshmen and sophomores and sometimes all the way up to senior year in college and with all the transferring. But I do love watching their progress or their lack thereof and try to look back to their evaluation and say, you know what, he was this way in high school, but he changed. He was this way in high school, but he got better. And it's interesting to see, and I try to provide that information to as many NBA scouts and personnel that look for it. But when you're looking at the top, I think it's a two-player race for Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey for the number one spot. Bailey, I believe, is maybe the single most pure talent on the board. What he could be someday, we don't know. We have a greater idea of what Cooper Flagg is all about. And Bailey is 6'10", plays at Rutgers. He's got an excellent jump shot. He's a good rebounder, great athlete, and a shot blocker. He kind of fits the mold of what today's NBA game is all about. And he has that profile and prototype. And then Dylan Harper, his teammate, is a 6'6" big guard. He's going to be coveted in the top three spots. And Trey Johnson and your guy, you mentioned VJ Edgecombe, I think they round out the top five. Tremendous talent, high character kids, and guys that are good to excellent athletes. And then after that, I think when you start going to number 6, I think that's when there's a drop. I think you see not a significant drop, but I think you see a dip after number 5 in the draft.
All right, Paul, where can people find you? I'm going to put all your links up when we trim this up and throw it up on YouTube. But this is amazing information.
At Paul Biancardi on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you want to find me, I'll be there.
You can also catch him on the tube, working a lot of ESPN college hoops games, especially coming down the stretch. Paul, man, what a pleasure, and I love how we muscled through some of the technical stuff, and I was delighted to have you, and I would really like to do it again sometime too.
Yeah, let's do it again, and we'll get the technology right this time.
You got it right either way. Paul Biancardi from ESPN. There he was. We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
Shades is your trusted partner in stage lighting, offering a wide range of high-quality, innovative products since 2015. With designs that cater to all needs, fast delivery, and affordable prices, we provide exceptional customer service to ensure your satisfaction. With warehouses across the globe and sales in over 100 countries, Sheds is quickly becoming one of the most recognized names in the stage lighting industry. Visit shehds.com today to discover top-tier stage lighting solutions and become part of our global network.
With San, owning iconic furniture no longer requires paying a premium. We use the finest materials like Italian top-grain leather, known for its durability and luxurious feel, and apply meticulous attention to detail in every piece we create. Our replicas are crafted with the same care and precision as the originals, but at a price that makes them accessible. With over 15,000 satisfied customers worldwide, we've proven that high-quality furniture doesn't have to come with a high price tag. Explore our collection today at san.com.
Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today. At 25 Home, our ultimate goal is to provide you with a transformative experience, making each day feel like it has an extra hour. We believe your home is more than just a space, it's a sanctuary where comfort, relaxation, and happiness thrive. Discover the difference at 25 Home today. Shop now at 25home.com.
And now, back to our show.
Hey, there she is, Madison Hawk.
Is this the Pete Sousa?
Joining us live from Kansas City. I appreciate you taking the time. And if you can't get on camera, it's all good. We got this beautiful shot of you, a glamorous Madison Hawk headshot.
Wow, that is a great photo. I had good hair back then.
You still got great hair. You're in Kansas City. You're working this week for ESPN and the Big 12. You're also an analyst for Fox Sports and a sideline for the San Antonio Spurs. Right now, though, I want to keep it specific to the Big 12 women's tournament in Kansas City. I imagine you got in yesterday. What's the vibe like around the city coming up to a tournament like this?
Yeah, I did. I got in yesterday. I'm really excited to be here in Kansas City for the tournament. I mean, just so much excitement around this conference right now, and rightfully so. 5 teams in the top 25, just so much talent from top to bottom. I got lucky being able to make it to Kansas City with all the bad weather in Dallas. A lot of flights did not take off. So I did get lucky to get in last night and got to the hotel. It's the official Big 12 hotel. So it's super nice. Branding everywhere. Just really cool to be a part of this atmosphere. I mean, you know this, Pete. Like, it's the best time of the year, in my opinion. I played college basketball. I played in tournaments like this. So this is so exciting just to be in this atmosphere. Anything can happen in March, and you can just feel it in the arena here at the T-Mobile Center right now. So UCF and BYU is getting ready to tip things off at 11 o'clock. It'll be game 1 of 15. I will be here for all 15. So just really excited. I was telling someone, Rachel Galligan's working with me, and I was telling her, this brings me back to my AAU basketball days where you're just spending your entire day in the gym. And although I won't be lacing up, I do have my Jordans on, so I am ready to go if anyone wants me at any point, but I'm pretty washed up. So anyway, so excited to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So, by the way, I was flying out around the same time at a DFW. My flight got canceled. Did you get delayed a lot?
Ooh, no, I was out of Love Field. I always go out of Love Field. I'm a Southwest girl and was able to make it out. I know a lot of people's flights were canceled. My husband was flying from Phoenix to Dallas. He got canceled. So a lot of moving parts to get here, but I woke up this morning and looked outside and there was snow everywhere. So wasn't used to that when it was still like 75 in Dallas, but the snow is melting and things are looking better.
All right. So you mentioned you got BYU coming up. Early games, like you said, tip off in about a half hour. That's UCF and BYU, then Houston, Colorado, followed by Arizona State, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech and Kansas. That's day 1. Some of the bigger programs getting some buys, right? Baylor and TCU, to be specific, along with West Virginia. I wanted to ask you about the Baylor and TCU game. You had a front row seat to calling the game for Fox on Sunday. What about TCU makes them so good?
Oh, that's an easy answer. Haley Van Lith and Sedona Prince. In all reality, though, that program, from what they've been able to do in the last 2 years, going from not winning very many games at all 2 years ago, and then to last January in 2024, having to hold open tryouts because they didn't have enough healthy players. They couldn't compete, having to forfeit games because they didn't have enough eligible players because of injuries. And then you take a look at the turnaround that head coach Mark Campbell has done with the Horned Frogs. It is so impressive. I really have never seen anything like it with the women's game. But a lot of that turnaround is because they went out in the transfer portal and they got players like Haley Van Lith. To me, the offense completely runs through her. Their offense is a 4-out, 1-in, spread, pick and roll type of offense. And Haley is the conductor. She is the point guard. She's making it all happen. And Sedona Prince, not too bad either. And it's such a unique story with TCU too, because you have a center like Sedona Prince who is averaging almost a double-double in conference play, 23 points and 9.6 rebounds for Sedona. But the thing with her is this is her 7th season. Fun fact, she was a 2018, said to be a 2018 graduate. I graduated in 2017. I haven't touched a basketball since then. So she's still going strong, but she's so much fun to watch. They play so well off of each other. But then you have spacers within that pick and roll offense like a Madison Connor, who leads the nation with most 3-point attempts per game. They are just, although they don't have many players that come off the bench and contribute a lot when it comes to scoring, they have a lot of players that really contribute a lot on the defensive end. And to me, that's what stood out. And I think the reason they were able to claim the regular season title Sunday at Baylor was because they have that defensive depth, and they really challenged Baylor. They made it tough on Baylor to score. Baylor was shooting about 28% from the field, about 15% from three throughout the entire game, but Baylor still made it really competitive, and you could tell that they had a lot of fight in them too. They wanted this game. But to speak on just the turnaround more about TCU, I mean, the last time Baylor and TCU met, TCU snapped a 37-game losing streak to Baylor. So and to put that into perspective, what the Horned Frogs have been able to do, I think a lot of it, though, you have to give credit to Mark Campbell and just his ability to recruit the transfer portal. I mean, to get a caliber player like Haley Van Lith, who's been at Louisville, who's been at LSU, and to get her to buy into the system, he sold her by just saying, hey, I want you to come and I'm going to build the entire offense around you. And now she's the Big 12 Player of the Year. It's worked really well for TCU. To me, they're my favorite in this tournament. To be quite honest, I think the tournament goes through TCU. I mentioned there is a lot of depth, and I know we can get into that more. But for me right now, TCU is the team to beat.
And how much does Sedona Prince have to do with that? She is a terribly unique college basketball player. I don't care whatever side, women's or men's. Is she just a one of one in your long history of competing and watching the sport?
Yeah, well, I think the thing about Sedona Prince, and I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, because this is the first season she's been healthy for an entire season. I mean, injuries have just dismantled her career up to this point. TCU started 14-0 last season. Then Sedona Prince broke a ring finger, and then from there, the whole season was dismantled. They went to holding open tryouts. But she told me, she was out of basketball completely, living in San Diego, thinking about maybe going over to Europe to play. And then when Mark Campbell got the head coaching job at TCU, they had a prior relationship when he recruited her at Oregon. She told me she felt like she got a second chance on life, not just on basketball, but on life. And, when it comes to X's and O's, she's a unique player because she's 6'7", but she doesn't really like to post. She's not your traditional post player where she's going to go down on the block and just back you down. Mark Campbell is trying to get her to post up more, but she'd rather pick and pop. She's such a matchup threat because she does such a good job just bringing defenders out to guard her. And a lot of these, big time post players don't really want to leave the block. So she's a matchup issue in that sense. But yeah, to me, the entire offense just revolved around Haley Van Lith coming off that pick and roll that Sedona Prince is setting. The thing that worked really well for Prince too against Baylor is she got hot from the mid range. The majority of her shots were all from the high elbow, from the high post position. And so they were really bringing her off the block, and it worked for TCU, especially there in the first half, because Baylor's center Aaronette Von Lay was having to come up off the block, and she's more of a bigger post player. So they just kind of used Prince to their advantage, and I think she definitely has to be, knock on wood, she stays healthy. I think she has to be a big presence this week in tournament play. I've watched her a ton. I caught her game against Iowa State too, where Audie Crooks really went at her and really challenged her. That was an awesome matchup to watch. But I think if Prince can just, stay in her own head and just go to work, she's going to be really hard to beat.
You mentioned Audie Crooks, and you get into that, I don't even want to say second tier, but, there's a lot of really good teams up around the top. Baylor, obviously we talked about TCU, but when you look at Baylor, West Virginia, Iowa State, and Kansas State, out of those teams, which one do you see emerging to challenge TCU? And then secondary, what do you like, some specifics about some of those teams?
Yeah, well, I think Baylor, just right off the top, is, there was high hope. I just watched Kansas State practice, and there was obviously a lot of high hopes around Kansas State for this season. It almost felt like the conference was going to run through them in the preseason poll, pick to win it. But they had injuries. Aoka Lee, she went down. And so that has been a huge factor for Kansas State. They still have Serena Sundell, who to me is a top 3 player in the league. But it does feel like the momentum has shifted away from Kansas State in the last couple months and in favor of a TCU or a Baylor. I like Baylor a lot because they have 5 players scoring in double digits. They almost have 6 players. They're just deep and they're really competitive. And it's not like they have just one superstar. The person who you could say would be their superstar, Little Paige Buggs. She's out. But she's hopeful that she will be back for the NCAA tournament. But then you have Yaya Felder, who was just named 6th player of the year by the Big 12. She normally comes off the bench, but she has started the last few games with little Paige Bugs out. So I just think the depth with Baylor, they would worry me if I'm an opposing team scouting them. But you just mentioned all the other teams as well. I think what really stands out about the Big 12, I mentioned this earlier, you have 5 teams in the top 25. The Big 12 is one of 2 leagues that have at least 5 teams in the top 25 in the poll, the other being the SEC. And we know how stacked and loaded the SEC is for women's basketball. So it does feel like it is anyone's ball game this week here in Kansas City. I love Iowa State. I think that they're missing just one more factor. They have Addie Brown, Emily Ryan, who are great scorers, great facilitators. And then honestly, one of my, if not, I'm not going to say my favorite, but I will say she's really close. Audie Crooks. I love that player. She has the best personality. She's so lighthearted, but she is a dog. She's such a matchup issue because if you play behind her in the post, she has the size and the physicality to just completely bury her opponents. But then she's also really smart too. To be as young as she is, just a sophomore, she's really smart. She can help direct Iowa State's offense really, really well. But I mean, I could go on and on. Oklahoma State, another big team, number 21 in this week's AP Top 25, finishing 8 spots higher than preseason polls predicted them. They finished number 3 and were predicted to be number 11. But you know this, Pete, it doesn't matter what teams and what the media is saying about you in the preseason. It matters what you're able to do here in March. And I think Oklahoma State has a lot of momentum right now. But I'm getting long-winded because I'm really passionate about how deep the conference is. But no, my last point I do want to make, though, you can't leave out any teams like Utah. Just talking to Rachel Gallion, and you know, she knows this league better than anyone. And she said her sleeper team's Utah. And she had a great point. Gianna Neekins and Kennedy McQueen, they combined for 50, 40, and 90. So what that means is they were both shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. When you have 2 elite scorers putting up percentages like that, you're going to be really hard to beat. And as a reminder, Utah did beat number 3 Notre Dame earlier this season. So the depth, the parity, Pete, when we were hosting college football in the Big 12 together, we talked about the parity within football. It kind of reminds me of that. Like there's not, yes, TCU, ran away with the regular season, but for the first time in league history, it came down to a winner-take-all game in the final day of the regular season. So that just speaks even more to the parity inside the Big 12 right now.
And by the passion of these fan bases, right? Like you load this up with such good information. And then you mentioned Utah. I was calling the men's game. There was a doubleheader last Saturday. And as I was making my way into the men's game, the women's game was in overtime. And it sounded like an eruption inside when Wilkie, the girl on Utah, hit a half-court shot to win it.
Yes,
like you couldn't get any more exciting, an exciting brand of basketball. And then we have a men's game after that, which is kind of like, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of excitement around this. 2 more questions. One, when we talk about Baylor, I love Sarah Andrews because she's the type of player that can be like the alpha, right? Can take control. But the game that you did, she sort of disappeared. How important is she to Baylor being able to make a run, whether it's in the Big 12 or in the NCAA? I feel like she's got to be a factor in that. How does she become one? I guess I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she has to be a factor considering her experience. She has now played the most games in Baylor program history with 163. And then she's the only one on the roster to have won a Big 12 championship. So when you talk about the experience, I mean, Baylor won 13 of the last 19 Big 12 championships. So when you think about the experience that she has, understanding the program, wanting to play for Nikki Collin has really poured into Sarah Andrews and made her believe, hey, if the shot clock's winding down, you can have the ball in your hands. You're an elite scorer. You're averaging 11 points this season, but you're dishing out almost 6 assists. So she is a great facilitator within this offense. She had 4 threes against Kansas State 2 games ago. And then you mentioned it. She kind of did disappear a little bit against against TCU. But I think that speaks to TCU's defense. They had a game plan going into this. The Horned Frogs did. And they really felt like if they limited Sarah Andrews, that they wanted other players to step up, like Fauntleroy, like Von Lay, like Jada Walker. But interesting enough about Jada Walker and Sarah Andrews, to me, those are the 2 facilitators within Baylor. They've combined for over 320 assists this season. That's 3rd most by any duo in Division I basketball. So they do have the talent and the depth and multiple threats, I think, to make a deep run into this tournament. But to your point, I think that they have to have Sarah Andrews involved. She's number 7 in Big 12 in assists per game, number 4 in the Big 12 assist to turnover ratio. This is a crazy number. 5 assists to 2.2 turnovers. And the way that Baylor wants to play, they want to play so fast. So they need somebody, a veteran guard like Sarah Andrews, to have the ball in her hand. She's also, I don't know how much time you spend around her, but she's just also such a cool person. Like her personality, she was cracking me up before the game during shoot around, and she just looks like she loves ball, loves going out there, having fun. And I think, just to circle back, just her experience, being the only one that's been here and done that by winning a Big 12 championship is going to be really crucial down the stretch here in March.
Yeah, Baylor's guard play, I think, can put them a cut above, but they'll need Andrews to produce. One more for you. You are, an athlete, right? You played Division I basketball.
I was, right? I was.
So now, and you've got twins at home. You got responsibilities with the Spurs. You got responsibilities with Fox. But now you got this Big 12 tournament you're doing, and there's so many teams. And there's so much information. And somebody like you that's as dialed in and as buttoned up as you are, how do you, for the young folks trying to get into broadcasting, how do you put your arms around an event like this and dial in and get ready for it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, in short answer, preparation is key. And if you say that you don't have time, well, you're just cheating yourself, because you have time, right? Time management is key here. And you mentioned my other responsibilities. I'm going to fly from here to San Antonio to do 3 games there for the Spurs. And I'm kind of all over the place right now here in March, but this is what I love. I love basketball. And then, I've got responsibilities at home with 10.5-month-old twin daughters. And so luckily I have a great support system at home with my husband and my parents in town, watching them, so I can live out my dream, because this is what I love. I think when you're passionate about something too, it doesn't feel like work. And I know that's the old cliche, but just walking into an arena and knowing what these players have gone through and the sacrifice that they've given up, the early morning 2-a-days practice in September and October. I take a look back at, whenever I was playing Division I basketball, time management wasn't a thing. It was like you were an athlete first, then you were a student, and then everything else. So I think I have a respect factor for everyone that's done it. But I would say, anyone trying to get into this industry takes a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, but you always have to be the most prepared one in the gym or on the field, because you don't want anyone to be able to say, well, she's just up there to fill a role. Like, no, you're up there because you know what you're talking about, right? And I think too, when you have a passion for it and you love it, like, this is all fun. Like, I'm sitting in my hotel room last night and I'm looking at stats for work. Like, this is not work, it could be much harder. We're not talking life and death here. So it's a balancing game, but when you have a lot of pride in what you do and when you work with great people, like working with you, it's fun. So I love what I do, and I love being able to cover the game at all different levels, right? Being in the NBA, then being on, the college basketball sidelines, being an analyst, now hosting. Like, it's so fun to see the game from all different perspectives. I will say I love my time as a player, but I'm not envious of those girls that are having to go through all of this right now. I miss it, but I like to be on the other side of things now. I paid my dues, I did my time, and now I just get to sit back and just relax and watch some basketball.
Well, if you want to watch her on the other side of things, you don't have to wait long. Tip-off coming at 11 a.m. from Kansas City. You can check it out. All the games, every game on ESPN Plus, right? And then on the network as well.
And Friday, ESPNU. Friday's games will be on ESPNU. Yeah, so there's some of the, not bigger games, but some of the higher seeded games. So those will be on ESPNU.
It's awesome. It's just a one-stop shop to check out everything Big 12 tournament. Madison is your tour guide. Madison, thank you so much for getting us ready. I look forward. I'm gonna nail you down for. We're gonna be working together in the fall. We're gonna figure it out. So
yes, well, hey, we are. I'm already manifesting it, but also. I have to go on record and say a big congratulations to you for putting a ring on the finger. I was bugging you all fall saying, when is that going to happen? And it finally happened. So that's the best news I've seen in a while.
I can't wait until you meet Christy. I'm going to have her thank you, because you constantly were reminding me that was a very important piece of business that I had yet to execute. So thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to run out to the arena, but good talking with you.
Always awesome talking with you. Good luck, Madison.
All right.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
Experience the future of secure private cloud storage with Internex. Protect your files with end-to-end encryption, ensuring your data stays private and accessible only to you. Enjoy seamless, fast storage without compromising security. Visit Internex.com today and take control of your digital life. That's INTERNXT.com today. Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
Farmhounds offers natural treats and chews made with quality products that support family farms, regenerative agriculture, and humane farming practices. Give your dog the best with wholesome, organic ingredients that promote health and happiness. Shop now at farmhounds.com.
Transform your workspace with Hanomi Ergonomics. From adjustable chairs to standing desks, we provide solutions for comfort and productivity, whether at home or in the office. Improve your posture, reduce strain, and work smarter. Visit us at hanomi.co today. That's HINOMI.co today. At Acasis, innovation drives us. Since 2008, we've been creating cutting-edge technology products that make your life easier. With a focus on performance, design, and customer service, we're here to help you work smarter, not harder. Join us on our journey to simplify your world. Visit acasis.com today. That's ACASIS.com today. We are Rogue Media Sports.